is Notsam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Matt Tremont is here. What's going on, man? What's the haps?
I'm good, man.
I'm glad you're here. I'm excited to have you here. We've been meaning to do this. So, like, and I've talked about this before, but it was like 2 years ago, I guess, at this point. Maybe it was even more, that Onita came to the States. Because, like, when I was, whether anybody believes it or not, I was a tape trader in high school. And, like, I found Onita when I was like, I don't know, I was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school, whenever that was. And like, that's really, I started with kind of deathmatch wrestling, where I think a lot of people start with the IWA Japan 95 tournament, because you heard about that from Mankind and all that stuff, right? And then I feel like just as I started to go like an inch deeper, that's where I found Onita and all that, everything else. You know what I mean? After that, everything kind of follows. And I hadn't thought about it in a long time. And I start seeing stuff online that first I saw the kind of buildup where you started calling out Onita. Yeah. Right? And I was like, okay, like I figured you were just trying to get attention. Yeah. Which I was like, good for him. Like, you know. And then when like it started getting advertised, no, Onita's coming. I was like, come on. And then like, I mean, I waited until like a couple days before, and there was no cancellation, there was no it's happening. And I started like researching. I was like, yeah, he was in America like once years ago, and it was in California. And so I'm going like, he's coming and he's wrestling. So I was like, screw it. And it was like, I went right back to being in high school. I went online, I bought a ticket, I showed up early, I stood in line for the meet and greet, I did the whole thing, and like you could see it on the DVD. I'm sitting there and like I'm like with an aisle seat, like clapping along and everything, and it was like one of my favorite experiences as a fan, like especially as an adult fan. So I want to start there. Like, how did you end up in the scenario where you and CZW got Onita to the States, not just for a signing, not just for a match, and it was a barbed wire, full-fledged Onita death match. It was awesome. But how did it happen?
It was the idea itself. CZW wasn't even in the picture when I first thought of it. My intention was, I've done all this, in almost 13 years in wrestling now, as far as the genre of deathmatch wrestling goes. Won all the tournaments, traveled here and there, but the mecca that all Americans strive for is to go to Japan. I didn't get to Japan yet. I wanted to go to Japan and get crazy over there. So I talked to I'm like, what do I need to do to get to the attention of Japan? And I was at a Beyond Wrestling show. I talked to Steve Monster Mac. And I'm like, man, love him. What can I do to generate some interest to get to Japan? And he's like, just do what Taz did. Call people out. And I'm like, all right. Well, if I'm going to call anybody out, I'm going to call out the God himself. Because that's who I grew up on, watching tapes and, downloading clips off Kazaa and all that places. So I'm like, I'm going to call out Onita. Came out with the catchphrase, Japan is scared. So like they didn't want me to come over there. I was too violent. And I'm going to call out Onita. And I think the first promo that I did, I just got done 3 rounds of a deathmatch tournament in West Virginia. I was feeling it, and I asked the camera guy, Chris Grasso, I'm like, hey, man, can your camera film video as well? He's like, yes. I'm like, I'm in the zone. Let's film a promo.
Because I would imagine, and we'll get into all of it, but like in that scenario where you've just gone, if it's a tournament, that's 3 death matches. So you not only physically do you look just beaten and bloodied, and you've been through hell, but I have to imagine like the adrenaline is sky
100%.
high.
100%. Okay. I'm on. I'm even though I'm dead inside because I'm just 3-round tournaments they're grueling. Right. But I'm feeling it right now. So
it hasn't caught up with you yet.
No.
Like you're still right. We got to do it right now.
It was probably no less than 5 minutes after the match. I was literally walking down the hallway. Onita's on my mind because I knew I wanted to do something to get it out there. And I'm like, Grasso, follow me. Promo now. and we filmed it. I put it right online as soon as I got home. This was in West Virginia. As soon as I got home, I put it up, and I guess that was the first, interest. And everybody's like, what are you doing calling out Onita? I've never talked to the guy, never met him. This is just fanboy Onita.
I mean, and at the time, he really wasn't even doing conventions over here. He wasn't coming over here.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like you said, he was the one time for California for XPW.
Yeah.
And he made that, I think, one appearance at the arena. It was like a run-in. He was in sandals. So yeah, we were the promotion to finally get him over here. So I put the promo out. Then I, wound up talking to DJ, and then everyone's hit me up, and they're like, "Why are you calling out Onita?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I want to get to Japan. That was my goal. The WrestleMania, going to Japan is my WrestleMania, my Bound for Glory, whatever you want to call it."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "This is what I got to do," and it started to pick up some traction, and I guess the early logistical legwork I did. Then when it came to the finances and business, I knew I couldn't pull that off on my end. So I'm like, I need a promotion to help back me. And that's where DJ High and CZW was.
Wow. And so what? I mean, the promo comes out. Onita and the people in Japan are just going like, oh, there could be some business here. Like, this is interesting. And then they were just, it was just timing. Like, they were like, we're willing to do this now.
It was a DM on Twitter from Onita. It's him and either his wife that runs it.
Yeah.
Or Pandita, one of his young boys, that runs it. So it was a DM. They're like, I forget what they exactly said, but they're like, they showed interest. And luckily, the very influential person that made everything happen was Tony Myers, Chainsaw Tony, because he was from the States. He knew of me, and he's been working with Onita for the last 3-4 years over there under that gimmick. And I still have my wrestling collectible store in the Berlin Mart. And Tony and a few guys stopped by, and he, we chatted for a little bit, and he was just about to go back to Japan. So he wanted to meet the kid who's been calling out Onita, who he has no idea who he is. And he was the one to go back to Japan, like, hey, seems like a genuine person. He's just trying to generate some interest. He really wants to go to Japan. He's not shooting on you. He doesn't hate you. He's just a really big fan of yours. And I think that really, helped Onita. Like, okay, like
you're doing it out of respect.
Yes,
and like
100%.
you're the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when I would get the DM. And then as soon as I got that DM, I was sitting at my store at the time. The wife was with me. I showed her, and I'm like, Onita just got back to me. This is nuts. And as soon as he hit me up, I called DJ right away.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's interested. Let's make this happen. And we didn't even come up with the name Once in a Lifetime yet, but in my head, I'm like, as talking to DJ, I'm like, this is a once in a lifetime type thing.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is your WrestleMania. You have John Cena and The Rock at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
For the deathmatch world, it's you and Onita, right?
It's crazy.
Right?
Crazy.
Yeah. So when you got the DM, first of all, like the fact that it happens over DM, but people say what they want about Twitter, and I mean that's where Twitter is so great. You know what I mean? Because as much nonsense as you have to deal with, it allows you to connect with people, just like that maybe it would have been more difficult otherwise. But so was it his idea to be like, yeah, I know you want to come to Japan and we'll bring you over, but why don't I come to the States?
Pretty much he was like, because his goal was to come over here and finally wrestle here.
Yeah.
I mean, he had matches years ago in Memphis, so it's been 25 years since he actually had a match. So I guess once DJ and Onita started talking and other parties started talking, they're like, all right, we will bring you guys. So that wasn't even in my mind. I'm like, I'm just trying to go to Japan.
Right.
So once they started talking and DJ gets back to me, he's like, oh, we're going to bring him here. I'm like, okay, cool. So Japan was kind of not even talked about now.
Yeah, so you go like, okay, I mean, this is still a dream scenario because I get to wrestle Onita, but I mean, the whole reason I started this was to go to Japan.
Yeah. So it got flip-flopped, but I was cool with it. I'm not going to complain. So yeah, them talks began, and this was probably February, March that year. And once we get to April Mania weekend, I believe this was Florida, Orlando that year.
Yeah, that seems about right.
CZW was running Best of the Best. And going into that show, Mania weekend, they just like, we're going to announce it Mania weekend down there. So I wrestled Pentagon on Best of the Best. And once the match was over is when they played the video, when that popped up. And then just Onita in big letters, big pop from the crowd, goosebumps from me on my end.
Yeah.
And just very surreal.
Yeah,
Surreal.
I mean, I would imagine it was just crazy. So was there any, because there was a lot of I don't know if it's speculation, but there were a lot of doubters that were going like, well, you know, Onita's no-showed before.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, and that's why I said, like, I waited until the last minute to buy my tickets just in case it got canceled.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were like, you know, no, at the last minute he was supposed to be here, he was supposed to be there, he does this, he does that. By the way, like, not only was he there, but when I met him, he couldn't have been a nicer guy.
Yeah.
But were you at all worried that, like, he's going to change his mind?
I think we all were.
Yeah.
I think it was, especially that last 4 or 5 days leading up to the event, I would hit up DJ every hour. When's the last time you talked to him? Have you heard from him? And then especially the day of,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, did he get on the plane? When's he landing? So, yeah, just like you said, because he, didn't make those appearances years ago.
It was really smart, too, that you guys were all, like, tweeting out, here he is in the airport.
Yeah.
His plane landed.
Yes.
Like, you were like, so we were all on that ride with you guys.
I think all the fans were and skeptical of, like,
Right.
Especially, because they upped ticket prices for that show. Like, it was...
Of course, it was a big deal.
So, like, if you're going to spend that money, this dude better be here.
Right.
So I completely understand on that end.
Were you happy with the way that the first match went? I mean, I thought it was great. And that was the other speculation going in. I remember people are going to be like, no, it's going to be a 6-man, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, for me, as a fan, and this is legit, I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here, like... I thought the fact that it started one-on-one, I was like, I got what I came for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It did turn into the 6-man eventually, but I was like, you guys were one-on-one for a solid however long it was.
Yeah.
It was a good chunk of time, though. It was a barbed wire match. It was like there was an explosion. It was
Yeah.
the whole thing. I was like, no, I got what was advertised. Like, I got what was paid for. This was amazing. Were you happy with how it went?
Overall, for me, 100%.
Yeah.
I definitely felt... Because I would say 2 weeks before the show is when we found out Onita didn't want to do the one-on-one for many reasons, and I understood why. He was old, he's getting older.
Because that's the other thing. When you're calling him out and you don't know him, you don't know if he can still go, right?
Yeah, and he's like, he don't know me. We've never worked.
Right.
Is this young kid going to take care of this old man?
Exactly.
In the ring? So like 2 weeks out is when we first heard inklings from his crew. It's going to be a 6-man. And up until this point in time, most of the matches that he's been doing in Japan have been 6-man tags, 8-man tags. He hasn't, very seldom has he done a one-on-one within the last few years. Once we found out it was a 6-man 2 weeks out, I think the one thing I would talk to DJ about is, because the fans felt swerved, kind of, they wanted a one-on-one, for a full from bell to bell one-on-one. And I can understand a little bit. Maybe CZW could have handled it a little differently. But I think overall, like you said, and for me, if I was a paying customer, I would have been happy.
Especially because in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't even know if he's actually going to be here.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's actually going to come to the ring. You know what I mean? Like all this
100%.
stuff. So, I thought it was cool. So how do you then end up parlaying that? You accomplish your goal, and you do go over to Japan.
That morning, the morning of the show, was the first time I met him. He was across the street at the hotel. So DJ, I get a text from DJ saying, meet at hotel. You'll meet Onita for the first time. So I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. And the wife was with me, and so we go and meet him at the hotel. He comes downstairs looking like a rock star, like he always does.
Of course.
And couldn't have been nicer. And we basically talked business of what we're going to do tonight. And that's when they presented to me Japan for the first time. So he's like, we'll do this tonight, and this will set up for you to come to Japan to do a couple shows in October, 2 months after.
And you trying to play it cool, like stop yourself from smiling, like, because you
100%.
want to just like, okay, this is,
Yeah.
But you're like, yeah, okay, sounds good,
Yeah,
sounds good.
trying to play it cool, not mark out.
Yeah.
But, so all this is happening. That's tonight. you know, we're talking now, setting up Japan. I'm just like, this is all I ever wanted, you know, after, you know, years of putting my body on the line and doing all this stuff. So to right now to just nonchalantly just hanging out, eating breakfast with him, and then, you know, getting ready to do this tonight, and now knowing, hey, in 2 months I'm going to go to Japan. I was like, all right, cool.
That's amazing. So when you started, like, as a kid, I would imagine you grew up with death matches around you. You were a CZW fan first, right?
Yes.
And you went to the shows and everything.
100%.
So was it a goal of yours? Are you going, I want to be a deathmatch wrestler? Or are you going, I want to be a wrestler, and then you fell into, like, you know what, this is what I'm good at?
My first 2 VHS tapes, WrestleMania 5 and Kawasaki Dream. And I only got the Kawasaki Dream because I bought a box of tapes at a Berlin flea market in Berlin, New Jersey. And I'm going through it, and it was in there. So, like, the first wrestling I ever saw was regular traditional pro wrestling. Once I saw the hardcore stuff, it was very early on. I'm like, this is what I want to do. So I fell in love with it from the start. And the first thing I saw was IWA Japan. So let me find more of this. Then you find FMW, find Onita, you know, ECW.
Yeah.
And by the time I got into wrestling, ECW was on its way out the door.
Yeah.
CZW was prevalent in the Northeast, and probably 2002 on, I was at CZW every month. That was giving me my ultra-violent fix of wrestling every month.
And then when did you know, like, when did you drift in, cross the bridge from fan to performer?
I think 2006, I was a senior in high school, and I did the backyard wrestling and
Of course.
doing all craziness in my mother's backyard while she yells at the window at me. And I did that for a while, and I'm like, this is cool, but I'm like, I know I could make the step to the other side of the guardrail. And I started training with Primetime Amy Lee and a few other guys from the Philadelphia area. And January 27th, 2007, I made my pro wrestling debut.
When did you get to a place where you were like, where you really felt confident with it? Like where you didn't feel like, okay, I'm still trying here, or I'm trying to prove people. When did you realize, like, nope, this is what I do, this is what I was born to do? Like
I would say probably like 6-7 years in, I finally 2014, 2015. Once I won the CZW title, I knew, like, man, the company's putting me in this position, you know, for some reason. They see something in me to put this much stock into me to be the flagship of the company. And just, I think as far as performance in the ring, promo, et cetera. So I would say, like, very early 2015, I'm like, man, I can do no wrong right now. I think everything's cooking on all cylinders.
So by, like, even before 2015, like by I would say early to mid first decade of the 2000s is when death matches weren't cool anymore. You know what I mean?
It was dying.
It was dying.
Yeah.
You know, and I think people started to get sensitive about it too. A lot more people started to be like, well, this is senseless bloodletting, and this is, you know, and they started to almost be sensitive to the guys that were out there wanting to do it. You know what I mean? It's this weird thing where you're like, I don't want to see this person put himself through it. And he's like, but he wants you to see him put himself through it.
Yes.
That's why. So did you go, I got to take this mantle and, like, bring it back? Or did you at any point go, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because it's starting to get out of style? Like, how did you deal with the idea that this is going away, but this is what I want to do?
I came in at the right place at the right time, even on a downscale of where deathmatch wrestling was at the time. Guys either retired from the genre, some guys passed away, J.C. Bailey, brain damage, and it was kind of around the time when Nick Gage got locked up the first time, and I just came on the scene, so I was this fresh new guy. There was no new faces in deathmatch wrestling, so with all those negatives, it kind of, you know, I was there, and I'm like, okay, who's this Tremont kid? And I, you know, the first 3-4 years in the business, I did regular matches. And I was just waiting there for that opportunity to get booked to do a hardcore match or do a death match. And I finally got booked in South Jersey to do one. and that the referee was Brett Lauderdale. He runs GCW now. He's like, hey, Carnage Cup, a crazy deathmatch tournament in the middle of nowhere in Alabama, is the next week. We'll see how you do tonight. I guess I did okay. Come on down to Alabama the next week.
So you're doing your first death match.
Yeah.
You got your first death match. If you do okay, then a week later we'll put you in a death match tournament.
Yes. Yeah. So I got thrown to a pack of wolves real quick, and I wrestled Danny Havoc in the first round, who's one of the best to ever do it.
How do people treat you at that point? Like when you're young in deathmatch world, so you've got a couple years of experience under your belt wrestling traditional style, so you know what to do in the ring. But when you enter into deathmatch world, are there people that try to test you to see if you really want this, or is it even more so like, you know what, we're all a family here, let's make sure the kid's taken care of?
I think a little bit of both. The nicest people I've ever come across in wrestling are the hardcore guys. That's just how it is. And at the same time, in this genre, you better give it your all and give 110% and don't come in here half-assed. Because you're going to get hurt, somebody else is going to get hurt.
Right.
And I knew when I went to Alabama and I'm wrestling Danny Havoc in the first round, I already knew, I'm like, I know he's going to test me. He's going to push me to my limits because he just sees some young kid that wants to be an aspiring deathmatch wrestler. But it takes a toll, and we're going to see if you want to do it. And it was brutal.
What is testing like? Like what is it? What does he do to test you?
I would say, you're laying it in a little harder.
You're right.
Those forearm shots are a little harder.
So it's not even like he's taking like barbed wire or something and doing something else. It's just stiff hits.
Yeah. Just seeing if you can keep up. See if you can take the brutality and still.
That's so funny though, because like we're sitting there going like, oh my God, look, he's got like a frying pan or a light tube or something, and you're like, just hit me with a light tube. Stop hitting me with those forearms.
100%. So he tested me full on. And I guess I passed the test. And to this day, he's one of my best friends, Danny Havoc. And because of that, Lauderdale, Danny Havoc, and a few others spoke up to DJ, and that's how I would get my job at CZW.
So what do you do when that test is happening? Like, how do you pass? Do you take it? Do you hit back harder? Do you just understand where you're at? And
you're taking it, you're giving it back to show, all right, this kid can take it. And he's tough too. He's going to give it right back to him.
Right. So if you just take it, it's like, no, we don't need some kid that's just going to let us beat the crap out of him.
Yeah. And then I think the thing that I stuck out with was, a little charisma. All right, kid can cut a promo. He's not just a hack and slash. He just doesn't want to go in there and do, garbage hardcore wrestling. Because there's bad hardcore wrestling and there's good hardcore wrestling.
Does that drive you crazy, the people that don't know the difference, the people that don't understand that even in hardcore wrestling, even in deathmatch world, stories are still being told?
100%.
Because really you see bad hardcore wrestling.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just kind of put it all under an umbrella and go like, oh, you're one of these bad hardcore wrestlers without really kind of dipping into the genre and understanding. It's like anything else. There's bad regular wrestling, right?
Yeah. I think, I think overall many are very dismissive towards it. I don't think they give it a chance. And I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea, whether it's the blood or whatever it is. But I'm like, just give it a chance. There's so many different styles of wrestling, especially now. I'm like, I just give it a chance. But I'm like, the guys that are good, the Danny Havoc. When I was coming up, I got better because I worked with guys that were better than me. The Danny Havocs, Masadas, Drake Youngers, and those guys could implement the violence into telling their story. I'm like, okay, this is how it's done. It's not just ring the bell, trash can right to the head.
When you see Drake in a referee shirt now,
crazy.
Do you sit there and go like, if these fans only knew?
Yeah.
If they only knew what was under that referee shirt.
He was one of the best at a lot of crazy things over the years.
Yeah.
I'll anytime I see, like I just saw, anytime Gulak is on TV, I'm like, it's crazy because just 2-3 years ago, I'm like, I wrestled him. I worked with him.
Yeah.
And I had a match with him. And like all good people succeed in doing good things.
And it's pretty cool because like 10 years ago, these were all the guys that people were like, yeah, but WWE doesn't want people like that. Yeah, but these people, like, they were like, everybody was just like stuck in their positions. And now I think it is cool that we're at this place where I think more so now than ever, all forms of wrestling are kind of accepted because they find their audiences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you don't like a certain type of wrestling, you could just not watch it because your audience can find you. You know what I mean? Because of the internet, because of various things. I mean, I'm sure that the Vice stuff helped you tremendously. You know what I mean? Just showing the world of what 2019 Deathmatch wrestling looks like.
Yeah. Random people that I don't even know or I don't even think watch wrestling at all, I have been recognized. Hey, you were on Vice.
Yeah.
You put that big Kenzon thing in that other guy's head. I'm like, yes, I did that to that poor gentleman.
Yes.
So yeah, that Vice stock, things like that have, helped, overall exposure wise greatly.
Yeah. What was the first when you start doing much more of the hardcore stuff? Was there one first blow, whether it was with an object or whatever it was, that you go like, "Whoa, that sucked"?
Probably. I was in CZW probably 4 months at this time. October, I'm good with dates. I'm wrestling nerd with all that, but October 2011, my first main event for CZW. I'm wrestling Brain Damage, and we were still wrestling at the ECW arena. So I'm 4 months into the company. I'm main eventing, and I'm wrestling Brain Damage in the main event in the historic arena against a guy who's like he was CZW Brain Damage, and he hit me with the water jug bat that's on a stick, and he mollywopped me, and it'll scramble your eggs pretty quick, and I'm like, oh, I gotta shake that one off. But I think that was the first time I got hit with one of those. Been hit with plenty of them over the years. Right. But first water jug bat shot did not feel pleasant.
So it's not so much the stuff that like pierces the skin, right? It's not so much the cuts, it's the thuds.
At least for me, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is interesting too, because I mean, what looks like sensational to the crowd is the barbed wire and the tacks and the glass and all that stuff. Yeah. Is there you haven't had a ton of injuries, have you?
Knock on wood, I've never broken a bone.
It's incredible.
13 years of doing craziness.
Yeah.
A lot of trips to the hospital for stitches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But never no serious injuries.
Does it scare you? Like, for instance, like G-Rave, like just, recently, he was in a hardcore match and now he's got to get surgery on his arm, right? Because he just took, and it wasn't one of these like, well, he had this thing and that thing. It was some light tubes and some ladders. And I mean, to people outside the hardcore wrestling world, that probably sounds insane, but that's pretty standard hardcore wrestling fare. And, something happens, the wrong thing hits the wrong way, and now he's got to get surgery, which sucks. And I've been really, I'm loving seeing the amount of people that are tweeting out like the GoFundMes and help this guy out. Let's get him through surgery and everything. But when you see that, does that remind you like, oh, like stuff happens, like this is scary?
Yeah, and it sucks because like the last two scary things that happened both have been involved with Raver, with the incident last week and then back at the NGI tournament in Atlantic City a few months ago. He took the no rope barbed wire broke as he took him, and he fell right to the ground and hit his head, which I had happened to me in 2012. No rope barbed wire match with Masada. I got whipped into the barbed wire. It wasn't strung up right. It broke immediately, and my head smacked the floor. Man Pondo was upstairs, and I'll never forget him telling me that the thud was so loud he heard it all the way upstairs. And this was in West Virginia. Pretty sure I was concussed. I didn't go to the hospital or nothing.
But it knocked you out cold?
Yeah, not cold. I still finished the match when it was done. I knew I wasn't all there.
Right.
And then the 6-hour ride home, just, every 30 minutes getting up to get out of the car and puke and try to stay awake. Just
but you remember it?
100%, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because a lot of times like blows like that happen and it's like all of a sudden you lose your short-term memory.
Okay.
And it's just like, for that 6 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I've known people that have gotten concussed and like for 6 hours they're just repeating the same questions over and over again, and they just don't. Short-term memory just goes for that time. It comes back obviously, but it's a scary thing. It's also like, but that's I feel like there's so much kind of mystery left in hardcore wrestling because like a fan wouldn't think that your worst fear is to miss the barbed wire. You know what I mean? Like you're portraying like, oh no, I don't want to hit this barbed wire. But what would be worse is if the barbed wire broke.
Yeah.
and I didn't hit the barbed
100%.
wire. You know.
Yeah.
So how is it just there's a way of stringing it up where you exit in the middle?
Yeah, usually like obviously where the ropes would go through on the post.
Yeah.
They'll string the barbed wire through, and usually they'll do two or three strands on each rope, and then they'll exit. And then usually the sides where you see on the no rope barbed wire that are X'd, okay, those are the sides we can take a little harder than the side that's just 3 strands.
Sure.
But not every, CZW, GCW have very good, crews that know how to string up the barbed wire. Unsung heroes of deathmatch wrestling are guys like Shawnee, Tommy, and Eugene, for the last 15, 20 years, putting up these barbed wire matches. So I know when they're at a show, I'm like, okay, I'm safe in this not safe environment tonight. But I've been at other promotions, they don't know how to put up the gimmicks. And they're not as safe as elsewhere. And that's when things happen, like the Raver or myself or anybody.
Yeah. And I guess it just happens. The more experience you get, I'm sure you can spot it, but you never know, right? Yeah. I mean, what can you do? So did you ever really have a dream to be like that sort of mainstream WWE WrestleMania thing, or was it like you said, where you're like, no, I'm a Jersey kid. This is the wrestling that I like.
Yeah.
And this is just where I'm going to make my bones.
I think, when we're little, we all got the aspirations of WrestleMania and all that.
Well, we're all going to be Hulk Hogan, right?
Yeah. Yes. And Hogan was the first big star I saw as a kid. Like I said, my first tape was WrestleMania 5.
Yeah.
I'm a South Jersey kid. That was in Atlantic City. I wore that tape out crazy. But yeah, like my only initial first goal once I started, once I'm in the business a couple of years, I'm like, CZW was my goal. That was the biggest promotion at the time, doing this style and genre of wrestling. I knew that was my goal. I wanted to become champion there, win Tournament of Death there, main event there, and just be a big player there. And I did that. And because of the platform that I got at CZW, I was able to do a whole bunch of other things, which I'll tell people it's just an extra, icing on the cake a lot of the time. So being able to, travel the States and Japan, Mexico, Germany, Canada, all icing on the cake. So it's just been all extra, nothing but good. But yeah, that was my goal. I wanted to, do the hardcore style, and like you said, that South Jersey kid, and that just wanted to be hardcore.
When did you realize it was time to kind of do your own thing, part ways with CZW?
So last summer, the company has changed a lot, and for many reasons. That could be a whole podcast itself, good and bad. But to wrap it up, to make a long story short, last summer, a lot of things changed in the company, and I wasn't a fan of it. And at this time, I have some tenure there. I'm one of the, I'm looking in the locker room now, and I'm the old guy in the locker room now. I didn't know too many people. I didn't like what was going on, so I parted ways. I told DJ, I'm like, this will be my last match. Let me work with this guy. Let me do good business on the way out and put somebody up, and hopefully make a new star. And I parted ways. I had no intentions on never returning. And then last December, Onita hits me up, and I'm like, well, I guess I got to go back now. And I've been back since last December. Everything's been cool. Yeah. And the company's in a, I wouldn't say a rebirth is the right word, but definitely a time where the CW's trying to find their identity again. Yeah. Because they went through a lot of stuff the last couple of years. So I'm glad to be there. It's definitely not the same promotion it once was. It's not, the emphasis isn't on the ultraviolence. And I wouldn't say it always was. I think that was always in people's minds that CZW was just hardcore blood and guts. But I'm like, there's a lot of really good wrestling here too. There was maybe 1 or 2 hardcore matches on the card, but those were necessary because that's the genre we're doing and people that are buying a ticket.
Yeah, I mean Gulak was. Yeah, Gulak was doing like basically amateur wrestling in CCW, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But yeah, I've been back now and everything's been good. So now it's just I'm in a different position there now, opposed to you know, the green kid that started there years ago. You know, like I said, I'm the old guy sitting in the locker room now, you know, giving advice and helping out.
And do you feel like maybe, because sometimes parting ways and then coming back, it's like it kind of gives everybody that refresher where you're not, because otherwise to some people, you're still that green kid, right? Because
Yes.
you haven't left. You've been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Once you
Yes.
leave, you start investing in your own promotion. You start, you know, you maintain your name outside of CZW, and then it's like, right, well, let's bring him back because he's an asset.
Yeah.
Right? He's not just
100%.
Yeah.
So it's been good since, you know, I've been back there. I think it has the potential to get back to where it was, and because the company's been around 20 something years.
Well, that's the wildest thing, right?
It's crazy.
I mean, regardless of the ups and downs, and like whether it's like, it's not quite as good, or it has its eras.
Yeah.
It has its, you know, it has its time when it's not good.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I remember buying the first CZW tapes on VHS with the computer printed label.
Yep.
You know, it was just as ECW was going down.
Yeah.
So here's CZW, and it's like, it's still around. Like, just that it exists anymore, it still is incredible.
Still doing its thing.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. So when did you decide to start doing your own promotion and entering into that realm?
Man, since day one, I've always, as a kid, booked cards, promoted fake cards, and, you know, whatever. Before I launched H2O, but me and a buddy of mine started On Point Wrestling. And I learned a lot doing that. And then I knew we did that from 2013 to about 2017. No, 2016. And then I knew, I'm like, all right, I gained this knowledge. We worked together, but at the end of the day, it was his baby. It was his vision. I was helping him. I had my own vision, and I wanted to do things, you know, how I wanted to do things myself. So, you know, came up with H2O, the Hardcore Hustle organization. We launched in 2016, and at the time it was just something fun. Just we did 2 shows in the first year, so it was just something fun to do. Hang out with the boys, you know, give the boys another payday, and just hang out and put on some fun shows. And then everything started to evolve, and you know, we were gaining some traction. And a year ago, last month, a year ago, is when everything completely changed for me, you know, in life and in wrestling. H2O, the building we run now, we were just renting. Every few months we'd run a show. And the building was OTW, Old Time Wrestling, ran by former ECW referee Jim Molyneux.
Right.
Jim's a good friend and did good business over the last few years, renting his place, so on and so forth. And Jim hit me up randomly one day. He's like, Matt, can't do it no more. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, you know, I'm going to move out of the building, and the opportunity is there for you to move in. And I'm like, all right, cool. And so, you know, called the landlord and all that, and they're like, $5,500 to move in. I'm like, I didn't have a pot to piss in at the time. I'm like, I don't have $5,000, you know, to pull out of me. But I knew, I'm like, if we can move into this building, this can be our foundation. We can run consistently now, so more content.
Yeah.
I can open up a school. You know, we can do rentals, the birthday party gimmick, you know,
Right.
all that stuff.
All the revenue streams start to open up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just knew,
You do barbed wire birthdays.
That'd be cool. I knew, I'm like, all right, if we can get in here, this can be a foundation for a lot of things. I pretty much, like I said, I didn't have that money. I don't, you know, never had that kind of money in my life. I sold everything I had, even Deathmatch tournament trophies that I won over the years. I sold them all. I'm like, I didn't want to, but I'm like, man, this is a huge step for me and this company.
Yeah.
So any kind of personal memorabilia that I knew I had some value, I could sell.
Yeah.
Sold to certain people that I knew will appreciate it and
Right.
keep it. So, you know, and was able to get the money together. We moved in, and now a year later, we're running consistently every month. We myself and Preacher Phineas James run the H2O Wrestling Academy. We have 24 students enrolled in the school right now. Half of them are now wrestling. And it's my full-time, since 2016, you know, wrestling's been a full-time gig for me, whether, you know, my wrestling and my schedule, and then running the day-to-day logistics of H2O wrestling, so that I haven't had to have a regular, quote, you know, 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
So, like, and then we moved into our facility, so, like, I'm home, everything's here, and I'm able to. I'm not making $1 million, but if
You're able to get by.
Yeah,
That's it. I mean, you can get by doing wrestling. Like,
yeah,
that's the dream, right?
As long as the bills are paid, the wife's happy, and the dog has food.
Yeah.
I'm happy. So like, yeah, we're making enough to get by. Run H2O, make sure we're taking care of the boys at the end of the night and paying them.
Maybe eventually get enough money to buy back some of those deathmatch trophies.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I had 7 of them, so I sold all 7.
Yeah.
But I just won my 8th one in California, so I'm like, I'm
gonna
keeping
keep
this
that one.
I don't have to do nothing with this one.
Does it drive you crazy when you hear the story that like Foley lost his Kawasaki Dream Trophy
Crazy.
Immediately?
Beautiful trophy.
And
too.
it's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like... And has it ever turned up anywhere? Have you ever heard of it ever turning up?
Not at
Because that's
all.
like the deathmatch
Yes,
trophy, right?
yeah.
That would be the piece of memorabilia. Did you save anything from your Onita match, the first one, or any of them?
The exploding bats. I have one of the exploding bats.
That's awesome.
I had to keep one of them.
You had to.
Turnbuckle pad from the show.
That's awesome.
And the banner. I had a once in a lifetime banner made with me and him on it.
Oh, yeah.
Kept that as well. Shout out to the Struggles. He designed that for me. I think that's about it.
That's badass, though.
I had to keep something.
Yeah. Is it?
Anything else?
Is there anything that you're gonna like one day? Like, is there any? I don't want to call it a stunt and like in a diminutive way, but like any sort of spot, I guess. Like, is there any moment from a death match that you've participated in that you feel like this is like you would put in a tape or pull it up on YouTube, whatever, however you do it in 2019. I don't want to date myself. Like, you'd go like if you had a kid, right?
Yeah.
You're like, this is what I did. Like, is there something that you would show them to be like?
I probably 2 clips. One would, I guess, most infamous big spot that I did was Cage Death 14. Me and DJ Hyde on top of the Cage Death, and I gave him a Death Valley driver off the top of the cage through 3 panes of glass to the floor at the Skate Zone in Voorhees. And then I recently just got the footage from my match with Onita in Japan, which was a 5-on-5 no rope barbed wire explosion match. So I have the clip of me taking the explosion no rope barbed wire. So either of those 2 clips, I guess, check these out.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what you after Onita, you called out Cody. This was before AEW had started.
Yeah.
But you called out Cody, and he responded, right, that he was doing. There was other stuff going on, but one day he'd like to.
Yeah.
Is there any? What else are you looking for? You know what I mean? I feel like you're in this like really cool place right now because you went through that sort of like my childhood dream, right? Like you got that. You got the Onita stuff, and then you went to Japan. Like, you got it. Now, it's like, okay, my adult dream. Make a living just doing wrestling. Got it.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you look towards now? Like, what is something that you're like, I got to get this done?
The wife probably hears me talk about it every day now because, like, I've kind of been at that crossroads the last year. Just like you said, it's crazy because I think about it every day now. I'm like, all right, I did what I wanted to do professionally. I did what I needed to do professionally and personally to take care of myself and the family. So like, we're good now, and then building H2O. So I'm like, all that's good right now. So everything's chill. Everything's doing what it needs to do. So lately, I have been in that position. I'm like sitting back. I'm like, what is continuing to motivate me to one, to keep doing the craziness. And I did slow down the last year so I can continue to do it for another 5 to 10 years.
Right. So you can be your body's ready when it counts.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I wish I listened to Danny Havoc's and all them a lot earlier when they were telling me to slow down. Because I got pretty beat up, those years. Like, again, never no broken bones, but I was feeling it in the last couple of years.
What do you think it is that really like has that lingering effect? Like, what it doing? Is it just an amalgamation of everything, or is there something that, like, if you do this over and over and over again, like, your body is just going to tell you, stop, whether you want to or not. I'm not cooperating anymore.
I think it was a lot of the big bumps, taking the bumps off the Cage of Death and scaffold bumps.
So at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's the back, it's the knees.
My lower back and my knees, the fluid will build up in front of both my kneecaps all the time. They're burning. My hip goes in and out every day. So like, it was getting pretty bad. I can't get out of bed myself in the morning. The wife's got to pull me out.
Wow.
Just because I can't physically get up normally.
I'm sorry, there's stairs leading to the studio, man. I always feel bad, like, I mean, because that's not uncommon for wrestlers. And I'm always, every time, like, I'm bringing a wrestler to the studio, and I'm like, oh, the stairs. Like, that sucks.
Now I'm a lot better. I can slowly, gracefully get out of bed a little better on my own now. Because I just, last year I slowed down a lot.
Yeah.
Now I'm picking things back up. But back to the question, I guess, what's motivating me now? Like, I put the Cody thing out because I'm like, all right, I called out Onita. Who else could I call out that would gauge interest? Like you said, it was before he's pretty busy now.
Yeah. I don't know if although, I mean, like, look, I think it would be amazing if AEW figured out a way to, like, at a pay-per-view, do, like, a one-off death match to really make themselves different. I don't think Tony Khan would be into it.
No.
Right?
But even the match I would like to have with him is just like an old school Texas bull rope match.
Right.
Something like that. Because, like, even though I've do all the crazy death matches, I'm an old school wrestling fan at heart. I watch Memphis and World Class and old Georgia Championship Wrestling all the time. So, like, very old school fan at heart. So,
and at the end of the day, that's that hard-hitting stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, no, that's the real stuff to me. Still,
right.
It still comes off, holds up well today.
Yeah.
But yeah, a match with Cody somewhere down the line would be fantastic. I think, and that two motivating things that to keep me going. There's so many outlets and platforms now with all these companies that have television. The whole world. I've never been on TV, so I think that's the one thing. MLW's TV, Impact, Ring of Honor, AEW. If I could just, get on TV for 6 months to show the world and be able to sink my teeth into a 6-month angle and program and have promos and build up to something, that would be really cool. So I hold out for that.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing is, Tim Storm at the time was still NWA champion.
Yeah.
And they came to CZW at Cage of Death a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And the NWA still owes me a shot. So ultimately that's what I want. I want one shot.
At the NWA championship.
At the 10 pounds of gold and at the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. The underdog kid from South Jersey, the deathmatch guy who, the naysayers think can't wrestle.
Yeah.
But I think myself and Nick Aldis, could have a hell of a match and tell a really good story, and I think it'd be something different. So, like, motivate me now. I just want one shot, one opportunity.
A shot at Nick Aldis,
at the 10 pounds of gold, yeah.
I love that, man. I love that. Hey, what is your wife and your family like? What do they think of your matches? Like, is your wife watching your death matches? Is she got her eyes covered? Does she know enough to know that you're okay?
In the beginning, definitely something she had to get used to, and like, what is all this?
Yeah.
This whole world. Yeah, she'll tell many times she's only cried twice. I think once was at CZW. DJ gave me a choke slam off a scaffolding structure above the ring, and there was a barbed wire net underneath.
Oh, like the barbed wire trampoline type thing?
Sorta.
Kinda.
It was the tangled web match.
Oh, yeah.
I literally was tangled in the wire. It ripped me to shreds between my arm. It got my ass as well, my cheeks, my back, my head. It tore me. One bump tore me to shreds. And I went to the hospital immediately after. I was at Virtua Hospital in Voorhees for 9 hours, 136 stitches later.
Just everywhere.
From that one bump.
Looking like Frankenstein.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
4 nurses at one time stitching me all back together.
Did you take like full body pictures so you can get you with all the scars everywhere?
I have a few of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so that was once, and I forget the other time, but now it's to the point she's seen it all. She's like, "You good?" I'm like, "I'm fine." I'm like, "Okay, you're good." Yeah.
What
yes.
we were talking about before with Pondo.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you take a bump like that and you're just sliced everywhere? Like, do you even? Because I think about I've had stitches one time.
Yeah.
It was when I was a kid. It was right here because some kid tripped me and I hit my head on a door, and I went into a panic, just knowing I had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
and get like 3 stitches. I was like, oh no, I don't want to get stitches. No, when you take the one bump and it's like on one end you're like, okay, that's over, but you just is it too much for you to even comprehend that you're cut all over the place? Is a familiar feeling now because you've been in so many situations?
I get back one instance back to that bump I was just talking about. 136 stitches.
Yeah.
I took the bump. I'm literally laying entangled in the wire. I'm looking up at DJ, who's on top of the scaffold, and I give him a wink and a smile. Because before the match we went out there, the old adage I used to say, I wanted to be hanging in the wire like Lobo.
Yeah.
He was an early CZW guy. Him and Zandig's match years ago, he was hanging in the wire. I guess as crazy as it sounds, I wanted that visual. So I knew once I took that crazy bump, I'm like, all right, I know I got all my bearings and all my limbs. I know I'm pretty cut up right now and I got to go to the hospital. But I'm like, this is awesome.
I guess moment.
It's crazy.
I got the moment.
You know, the regular person walking down the street is going to think I'm a masochistic person. And I don't enjoy getting cut or I cut myself or anything like that. But it's just, I don't know, just something about it. But I'm like,
it really is funny when you talk about
crazy.
the normal person on the street. Because I remember, like in high school, I was dating a girl, and I gave her Mick Foley's book to kind of. She had no familiarization at all with wrestling. She didn't understand it, and I tried to tell her like there's levels of cooperation, like this is a and try to explain it to her. And the first thing, and I gave her Mick Foley's book, and she's reading about like how he came up and everything, and she goes, so is this like sadomasochism? And I'm like, no, it's not sexual. Like, no, it's not. It's not. It's wrestling. It's a different deal. In your school, can you train hardcore wrestling? Like, do you train hardcore wrestling, or is it one of those trial by fire scenarios?
Been getting that a lot lately.
Yeah.
One, because it's called the Hardcore Hustle Organization, and I think a lot of my students have come to the school because they were fans of mine and fans of what I've done. And I would say out of our 20-something kids that we have, 3 or 4 of them lately that have the itch. And I'm like, look, I had the itch too. But it'll come when you're ready for something like that. The time will come. But what we're doing here is training professional wrestlers. I'm like, we got some kids, I'm like, it's going to be a year before you even get in the ring. You're not getting in the ring and having your first match until you're physically ready, mentally ready. You got to be able to take care of yourself and someone else in that ring. You got your lives in each other's hands. Then throw the hardcore wrestling on top of it. It's a whole nother world. So the couple kids that I know, GG, he's one of our students. He looks just like me. It's like a mini bulldozer, and he wants to do hardcore. We got another kid, Nothing Face. He wants to do hardcore, and then one of our students took a bump through a door for the first time at the last show. Yeah. Now he's like, can I do it all the time? So I'm like, I gotta calm him down now. So I'm like, nah, we're not taking bumps on the concrete on Tuesday nights. CZW school would have that, years ago. Oh, go to the Combat Zone Academy and you're bumping on the floor and taking light tubes. And that's not what's happening. Yeah. We're training people the right way, learning the
You're
ropes.
Actually giving them a foundation in wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I even give them the opportunity to do a hardcore match, they're going to have a solid foundation of the basics and the fundamentals and know how to wrestle and tell a story and work the crowd and do your basic 101 before I give you a steel chair and you start whacking each other with it.
That's awesome. Well, man, I'm glad you made the trip out here. I'm glad you brought some DVDs. I would say they're giveaways, but I'm keeping them. However, they're for me. However, I recommend everybody, if you're into hardcore deathmatch stuff, H2O is your promotion. Matt Tremont, where else can people find you? What do you want to make people aware of?
All my social medias at Tremont CZW. And yeah, man, just my blood, sweat, and tears goes into H2O, promoting, booking, running it. So yeah, if you're in Williamstown, New Jersey, come check us out. WrestleMania, September 28th is our grandest stage of the mall show every year. So if you're in the area, come check out WrestleMania.
Love it, man. And this is the stuff that you should be supporting. I mean, this is the grassroots. This is it. Thank you, man, for hanging. This has been great.
Appreciate it.